You're listening to the Breakaway Breakdown, the bi-weekly podcast featuring breakaway roping's top talents from the professional level down to the amateurs, news, and more. We're going to be covering the fastest sport on dirt. I'm your host, Caitlin Gustav. This episode is brought to you by Equinity. Stay tuned for the commercial break to learn more. Welcome to another episode of the Breakaway Breakdown podcast. On this episode of the Breakaway Breakdown podcast, I am honored to have hosted the one and only Julie Mankin, who is a contributing editor to the Breakaway Roping Journal. You guys have probably seen her stuff. Julie is a former newspaper editor and Wyoming-based freelance writer whose work has appeared in Western Horseman, American Cowboy, the Team Roping Journal, and more. As a breakaway roper, she earned a top 10 finish at the College National Finals Rodeo and a Colorado Professional Rodeo Association championship. And she just recently won the 2021 WPRA Media Award, which she'll be honored at WPRA's Star Celebration on December 2nd for her work with the Breakaway Roping Journal to help drive the sport forward. Don't forget, leave us a rating and review, and enjoy this episode with Julie Mankin. Well, today on this episode of the Breakaway Breakdown podcast, I am fortunate to interview and host Julie Mankin, who is a contributor to the Breakaway Roping Journal, and she also just recently was honored with the 2021 WPRA Media Award. Julie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, and like I just said, you were just honored and were awarded the 2021 WPRA Media Award by, with your articles on the Breakaway Roping Journal. How great is this, especially with the Breakaway Roping Journal being so new? It's only been a year in the making. How awesome is it to be able to win this award promoting the sport of breakaway roping?
Yeah, it's still surreal, I'm sure, to a lot of women ropers. I've actually never won this award, even though I've been writing about rodeo for 23 years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Back in the 90s when I started doing public relations for the PRCA, mm-hmm. I lived with Charlene Harris in Colorado Springs because she worked for the WPRA. Mm-hmm. And so I got kind of an inside look at kind of, what it took to, to be at the helm of women's rodeo. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty outstanding. And it was kind of funny. A year or two ago, I ran into Charlene at a wedding. We're from the same town. She's world champion Bobby Harris's mm-hmm. Sister. And I always roped well, family, friends. And it was funny. We both had decided, we had heard some of the media as this breakaway thing got going, mm-hmm. Talking about, the young girls, the teenagers and some of the young girls that rope really well, they were calling them pioneers. And she and I, we just kind of slapped ourselves, and I thought, man, and it's kind of funny, Caitlin, because mm-hmm. then later I had talked to Jimmy Monroe, and I think those of us on the inside of women's rodeo for a lifetime had no idea the lack of awareness in the general public about breakaway. Yeah. So, yeah, we both kind of have discovered that. And so anyway, yeah, it was funny. I just started typing and I didn't stop. and I was on a campaign. I wrote letters to all my old colleagues at the Cowboy channel because I used to work it full time at RFD TV. And those are my friends that mm-hmm. were thinking that this was brand new.
You're like, nope, joke's on you.
Poor Chelsea Schaefer at Equine Network, I think I handed her 5,000 words. It was like, could you post this? Just because I want people to know what Mac Altizer did, mm-hmm. Breakaway's been at PRCA rodeos since the 80s. People just don't know. And then, and I want people to know J.J. Hampton won those gold buckles the hard way. Yeah. In the 90s, there was a women's NFR, and we rodeoed, and I didn't go as hard as some of them, but it was just, I wanted people to, I don't know if it got across, but I'm telling you, women's rodeoing in the 90s, it was like an Oscar-winning movie. Mm-hmm. To be out there doing that, and it's just all women and really handy women, fierce women, amazing women. We're gathering our own calves at the pasture, at the rodeos. So there was just a really, I think, a void, and I just wanted people to know, Carol Hollers got Breakaway out of the amateur rodeos. Where would we be without that? And honestly, I think another thing, the weight and legitimacy that this Breakaway snowball got really, really traces to the WPRA, because honestly, think about the sports commentators and the media types and the journalists and the rodeo announcers that they would not be able to say 19-time world champion J.J. Hampton is up. Think about what legitimacy that gave it. I mean, otherwise, without, women's rodeo and those world championships, I mean, they just have to say, well, here comes that woman from Abilene. She sure won a lot in college 30 years ago. I mean, like,
yeah.
Like, who cares? Yeah. So I just felt like there was a void there in people knowing the heritage and how Breakaway got here. And I just think, for young barrel racers and young breakaway ropers to understand why they hold a WPRA card as opposed to a PRCA card or something else.
Yeah, there's more than just logging on to WPRA and purchasing your pro card. There's a lot of history behind how we even got to this point that people don't realize.
It's super rich. And when you think about Dolly and Jolie Lauderette and what they did to keep the WPRA going, and the lean years, and just the women who have stepped in and really advocated for other women, I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. And for people listening to this podcast, if you guys want to go to breakawayropingjournal.com and you can look up the history that Julie is talking about with JJ and Larry D and all these guys. It's the 10 Unsung Heroes is on breakawayropingjournal.com that Julie had written about these unsung heroes that people don't really realize shape the sport. And that's one of my favorite pieces too. I'd go back and read those all the time because it's such, like you said, such rich history that people don't realize.
For sure. And gosh, it is kind of remarkable how good the girls are roping today. I mean, there's always been a lot of women who roped really well, and prior generations would be just as competitive, I feel. But it's amazing, and it starts with high school rodeo. What they've done, Breakaway's been a staple for 50 years. And then they started junior high rodeo. So that's just gotten these kids started that much younger, and it's also given tie-down ropers a leg up. They start as breakaway ropers in junior high. So I just, it's just good to educate and keep people aware of it. And and it's amazing for me. Those women, those of us in our 30s and 40s, it's just phenomenal to get to see it. It was funny when they asked for some information for this award. I thought back and I thought, man, I think I'm like a lot of women, and I did well in college, top 5 at the CNFR, and then I got out of college and got an 8-5, but I still amateur rodeoed, and I won the amateur, thing in, the CPRA in Colorado, and then it's like they're just really, what else? Amateur rodeos didn't pay that well, so are you really going to keep your calf horse for that? I mean, some people did, but not so much. So it's just really, I think it's a blessing that there's money to be won and goals that girls can keep after school. Yeah,
definitely. And I did want to talk about that as well, because you're not just a journalist, you rope as well. And so, talk about your personal roping, like your breakaway roping. And I know you still team rope a little bit here and there.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah. And, gosh, looking at the old pictures, the horses, obviously, in every discipline today, I think the barrel horses, look at the breeding, and the head horses, and especially the calf horses are really, fine-tuned in what they're bred to do. And, we learned on heel horses and ranch horses, and, they weren't necessarily NFR tie-down roping horses we were chasing calves on, but we still were competitive. And gosh, I will always have a fondness for an all-around horse. I top-notched my calf to win the 95 CNFR on a head horse. You know, you could head, heel. We were in the short round. My sister and I were both on the University of Wyoming team. There was only 3 women on the team back then, and so she was high call in the goat tying, and I was second or third high call in the breakaway on the same horse. Just a big old kind head horse, you know.
Those are the good ones, though.
So he was just part of the family, and I wish, you know, he could have won Horse of the Year. If she and I didn't both show up that day, he could have maybe, but. Yeah, it's really neat to see the horses. Madison Uthier's horse, and just, gosh, there's so many. And then you look at the Cowboy channel and how it's given everybody a chance to actually watch Breakaway. And it kind of struck me watching Salinas. It's like, wow, you know, the camera angles, and it's actually giving people a real idea, you know, this discipline. I mean, you know, the close-ups and the scoring and how these horses work, and I just thought, man, that's definitely something new that helps.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely is giving people who are sitting at home not being able to go to the rodeos something to watch, and see that these girls mean business when they back in the box at these rodeos too.
They're definitely fierce. And, you know, gosh, I've been promoting, you know, women barrel racers this whole time. But I just think, you know, I look back and, you know, gosh, Charmaine was, you know, big when I was a little girl. And, you know, being able to go compete with her as a teenager and win money like she did. And that was kind of life-changing to a young teenager. And I just appreciate the WPRA for that. And I thought, you know, how many women grew up and they wanted to be Lisa Lockhart and Sherry Servey, and as they should. I mean, what ambassadors to rodeo those women are. But, you know, how much more grace and guts and beauty and grit, you know, could little girls absorb when we teach them about Betty Gale and Jimmy Joe and Larry D. It's just really fun to get to do this.
Yeah, and there's all the women that girls, you know, my age or younger that we didn't get to meet those icons like Betty Gale Cooper, you know, but we have the JJs and the Jackies and the Larry D's right now who are continuing to pave the way for us. You know, because you've seen it all. What are your thoughts on how women advocated for the sport back then to how the women are advocating today?
Right. Well, you know, it's in their blood. They can't stop. They just crave it. And that's such an inspiration. I mean, you know, it's JJ, you know, it's such a Cody Old type thing that she has. And that's all in attitude is just so contagious. I mean, and then, you know, thank God Jimmy Joe and Larry D, they might have a bad back and a bad knee, but, you know, they backed in there in Las Vegas a few weeks ago and won it all. And I love that today's girls, you know, your age and younger, you get to see it live. You know, you don't have to read, you know, although there isn't nearly enough, there was never enough media platform for women ropers. No. There just never has been. And I just give kudos to Equine Network for sticking its neck out and launching the Breakaway Roping Journal when this, you know, was just a little tiny snowball. It really hadn't got going. And I think the momentum, you know, that has been added by the Breakaway Roping Journal and by what, you know, Chelsea Schaefer's done at Team Roping Journal for years. She put Rope Like a Girl in front of her 150,000 Facebook Team Roping, you know, fans, and in front of her 50,000 people that get the Team Roping Journal magazine. And she relentlessly promoted Larry D before it was trendy, before the Hall of Fame came calling. And I just really, you know, hand it to her for that. And I'm just so glad all those little pieces have contributed to where Breakaway has come.
Yeah, we're definitely all surrounded by an elite group of women that definitely help promote the sport. Equinety Horse XL and Equinety Ultimate OEC helps keep horses' bodies in the best shape possible when competing and going down the road. The amino acids in Equinety products help horses both at home and on the road. Horses recover faster and overall have healthier coat and hoof quality. Equinety products are a go-to for a solid supplement foundation for all horses at any stage of life, no matter what their job is. Equinety Horse XL is made up of 100% pure amino acids, specifically formulated to give the body what it needs in order to promote repair at the cellular level. The Equinety Ultimate OEC is a flaxseed-based omega-3 with natural vitamin E and colloidal silver all in one, which makes for a very powerful antioxidant, helps neutralize free radicals, and helps to reduce inflammation. For more information, please visit www.teamequinety.com. That is www.teamequinety.com.
Yeah, I'm just glad, and it's an event that isn't as hard to do when women get older. They might be 50, but a little brace and a little stretch, and they can still do it.
Exactly. Carol Hollers was held the arena record for a while on a young horse at Cheyenne this year.
Oh, that's right.
It's anyone's ball game. It doesn't matter your age, size, shape. You can do it.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's really neat. And it's given a big, it's just, it's really neat to see where the sport could go in the future with it's kind of like Jordan and I were talking, it went so fast that now we can build the foundation and the grassroots back to it. So.
Yeah, and that's, and speaking of that, it's going so fast, and we're working up, everyone's heading to Las Vegas this week. If people are listening to this podcast when it comes out, the finals are in Las Vegas this year. It's not what everyone was hoping to be at the actual NFR and the Thomas and Mack, but it's a step closer. What are your thoughts on the progress that, women can make and what we can do to help further that step to get into that little indoor arena?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, and I think key being that the powers that be there also own the casinos there in town, and so their goal is not to have the performances take any longer than they already do. I know they're not happy already that they needed to add some TV breaks and some hand braking in the barrel race. So it's, it's kind of an obstacle there. It's a little bit of a challenge, but I don't believe it'll take the Breakaway ropers 30 years to get into the perfs like it did the barrel racers. Surely not. But the thing that I think the overarching thing to remember is it's such a fan favorite. I was a publicist at the American Rodeo for years, and you would think in the old days, I think the most popular event typically when you polled audience members was bull riding, and that's been the case for quite a while. I know there was a few years when calf roping was really was one of the popular ones as well, but they did polls in Arlington, and it was the women. Yeah. The barrel racing was the most popular thing that fans love to watch, and Breakaway is the same. They love it just as much, and it's a novelty to see cowgirls. But I just think that will shine through and will hopefully win over, the hearts of the administrators that have other interests as far as not adding more to those perfs. It's been a really tight run ship since I worked. I ran the NFR press room in the late 90s, and I mean it's like clockwork. It's not an easy task to add. You can't even sneeze. In Sean Davis's schedule at the NFR, there was not a time for even that. So it's not probably as easy as some people wished it would be, but I do think it's a start to have the PRCA having their national finals, and I just hope that they see, the economic value of adding new demographics and new fans and new members, and they'll just keep it rolling.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up that the barrel racers, it took them about 30 years just to get into the NFR as well. So, it is a process, and that's what people need to realize as well. As much as all of us breakaway ropers really wanted in that little yellow arena, it's going to take some time. It's baby steps.
Right. It's just, I'm just glad the girls get a chance to rope 10 head for, and just for bragging rights, if not for the big dollars, but it's a start.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of roping 10 head, can we pick your brain and who do you think's going to kind of excel over there this year?
Oh man, well, it's going to be such good watching. And since we have listeners, wow, it's going to draw millions. I think it's just going to be, because last year was epic. I didn't get to watch all of it, but oh man, these girls. I mean, I think it was Jordan Fabrizio and Martha Angelo. They were just went head to head for 10 calves. It was, like a couple tenths of a second difference, and I love that. I just think that that's such an epic battle, and man, you can't count out Beaujolais, or I don't know. It's just
it's tough.
The draw will probably be a factor a little bit, but there's a strategy to a 10-head jackpot, and it's a lot different than the strategy a lot of these girls used at these one-headers.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's going to be back, especially for them. It's only 2 days of 10 rounds, so it's going to be very back-to-back for these ladies.
That's true. And if you imagine, getting psyched up for not just one calf, but 5, in a day, that's going to take a lot out of them. And it's going to, I've been involved with the BFI for a long time, and all those guys, they say what makes it such a tough roping is not, the conditions. It's the psychological, the mental game of, getting yourself, it's kind of a marathon, and 5 calves for that much money. It'll be.
I would say it's not just 5 regular average calves a day either. It's, these ladies are trying to win top dollars each round.
And bless these girls. I mean, honestly, they need the money for what they spent to travel this year. But they want the average title. Yeah. I mean, they want to say, they won the NFR average, the NFBR, I guess we should call it. But NFBR. That's what they're after. So that's what just makes it so epic, and it'll be such good watching.
Yeah. What about horsepower? Do you have any thoughts on the horsepower?
Gosh, this season when they were showing, when they were airing a lot of live rodeos, I did have a couple favorites, but gosh, it's hard to beat that horse of Maddie Uthier's. And, you always know that Jackie and Larry D are mounted so well, and I just don't think you can really pick those horses apart very much, those top 3 or 4. And they all, it's funny, they have a little bit different style. You'd think they all are just going to run and stop, but they break a little bit different, and they kind of track to a little different spot. So it's kind of fun to see the differences in those horses.
Yeah, no, I definitely love watching the top, anyone's horse, but definitely the top ladies. They have some of the best horsepower going. It's so much fun to watch.
It is, and then especially, if they, a little bit, if their horse is a little bit shorter, which some of them, I feel like, God, that horse looks short, but, those girls are used to it, and then they can beat you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, it's, especially that short little, when they get you right there, if you're not on your game, that could cost you.
Right, and I guess it's an even playing field. Nobody this year has been to the Orleans Arena under these conditions before, so that's kind of fun also. Yeah,
I'm definitely excited to go swing by and go watch it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I can't stay in town long enough, darn it. I really want to. I have a cousin there out of Montana. It's just so exciting. She's the mother of 2 and hasn't rodeoed very hard since she started a family, but just, hit a lick this summer and has always been a hand. Her whole family has, and so it's really fun. Yeah. She gets to go.
That's going to be a lot of fun. There's so much roping between breakaway roping and team roping happening in Las Vegas.
It's a little overwhelming, isn't it?
It is. I know we've been, between Team Roping Journal and Breakaway Roping Journal, we've been strategizing and figuring out, okay, here, we're going to go here, cover this. I'm like, man, this year's very overwhelming, but it's a good overwhelming, but man, there's a lot to do.
That is, I didn't think about everything you have to cover in town.
It's going to be fun.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Julie, you might want to turn your phone off while we're in Vegas. We're going to be calling you.
Exactly. Well, there's just nothing like Las Vegas and the level of competition, so everyone's looking forward to it.
Yeah, that is 100% true. 100% true. Well, Julie, I am so honored that you allowed me to call you and have you on the podcast. And I know I can speak for the entire Equine Network and the Team Roping Journal and Breakaway Roping Journal that we are so very honored that you stick with us and give us awesome stories to put out. We are so honored to have you on our team.
Thank you so much. And I'm just so glad that it's, y'all have stepped on the gas pedal with Breakaway and haven't let off. And I've just been impressed. Every time you ask me for a story and you keep your foot on the gas pedal, I love it. So I'm in.
We're all in. Awesome. Well, thank you, Julie.
All right. Take care.
Bye. Thank you again for listening to this episode. Julie, congratulations on your 2021 WPRA Media Award, and thank you for being on the Breakaway Breakdown podcast. Don't forget, if you're loving what you're listening to, leave us a rating and review, and subscribe to the podcast.